Hi, and hello, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Today, we're continuing our ICD-10 series, and we're going to be talking about billing challenges related to ICD-10 and the Medisoft solutions. So, for those of you who have not met me before, today I'm going to be your trainer and host. My name is Lori Olson. I've been with ASCOMP since 2001. A little flashback picture there, that was ASCOMP in our early years. All those guys are still with us today as managers. And, you know, a little shout back to 2001, sad event of 9/11 happened, and there we are in our break room sometime after that, playing with the terrorist cards that the soldiers used to identify the terrorists or learn their faces. So, been with the company for over a decade now, and I am a member of the Medisoft Product Advisory Board. My pride and joy are my two little miracles at home. After 13 years of marriage, my husband and I were blessed 3 years ago to adopt our first son, and our family continues to grow through adoption. So, again, a little miracles for us. And a little fun fact is that I love costume parties. So, luckily, ASCOMP loves costume parties too. Every year we do an annual year-end party at Christmas, and there's always a theme that we dress up for. So that's one I stole from our rock star year, dressed up as a rock star. So if you haven't met the crew before, here's a picture of the of ASCOMP today. We've grown quite a bit, but you can still see some of those same faces from the early years. Great bunch of people to work with, super fun and passionate about what they do. Our purpose at ASCOMP is to empower small practices to deliver the best care. It's at the heart and soul of everything that we do. And for us, that's not just giving you tools and technology to simplify the daily grind of your businesses, but it's also being there for you when you need us, because at the other end of things, we know that you have a patient that's waiting on you. So the more we can do to help you, the better we know that you're going to be able to provide the best care for patients. Beyond just the time, we look for the tools that will actually enhance your ability to deliver better care to all the people that we love. We truly do believe in small practices, and our hope and desire is that you remain independent, and if we fail in that, then we believe that we all lose. A little bit of housekeeping. Our webinar today should last approximately 30 minutes. If you have questions, you can type them below, and we'll try to respond shortly. We are recording the webinar today, and you will have access to that webinar recording after the webinar is over. So, another little story. I was able to my husband and I took the boys to Legoland this past summer. We were super excited about it. Our oldest was nearly 3 years old, and our youngest was almost 1. So we were right under the, getting right to the ages where, at least for our oldest, it was going to be fun and exciting, and we still didn't have to pay for them. So we were excited about that. Bought our park hopper ticket so we could go to both Legoland and the water park. But to our surprise, even though 3 and younger could get into Legoland, it was 1 and younger to get into parks. We actually did have to pay for our son, which wasn't that big of a deal, but again, it was a surprise for us when we got to the water park. So following the same principle, we want you to know what's included today, so there are no surprises. The first thing that we're going to be talking about or covering is the ICD-10 billing challenges. And then we're going to specifically be talking about the ICD-10 features or solutions that have been built into versions 19 and 20 to help you overcome those challenges. What's not included, this is not an ICD-10 coding training. We're not going to be talking about how to properly code using ICD-10 or how to use codes for medical necessity. We are not going to be talking about, we're not going to be doing a complete Medisoft setup and billing training today, nor are we going to be covering ICD-10 testing. We will, however, be covering ICD-10 testing in a future seminar in our ICD-10 track, so you can look forward to that, and please join us for it. Little disclaimer, we do make every effort to ensure that the information we're providing you is true and accurate at the time that it's presented. However, as you know, rules and regulations are constantly changing as well as deadlines. So ultimately, it's up to individual providers to make sure that you're remaining abreast of those changes. So let's talk about ICD-10. I think a lot of billers, there's kind of this assumption that we're going to be able to just flip a switch and start billing ICD-10 on any of our claims starting October 1st, 2015. That is not always going to be the case. There are some variables that we need to consider that don't make it quite that simple, but the good news is Medisoft has built-in features to try to make it that simple. So the things that can be challenges with that October 1st deadline is, first of all, there is an exception to ICD-10. So there are non-HIPAA compliant payers such as workers' compensation and auto insurance companies that may choose not to implement ICD-10 codes. So it's up to their discretion whether they're going to stay on ICD-9 or ICD-10. So if your practice encounters or needs to bill those type of carriers, then we've got to think about what challenge that's going to cause. And the challenge that can cause for us that after October 1st, 2015, you may have some claims that may need to be billed with ICD-9 codes for those exception carriers, and then for all the other carriers, the bulk of the claims would need to still be billed with ICD-10 codes. So how are we going to manage that? The other challenge that can create is that for some claims, you may find a scenario where you have a primary insurance that requires ICD-10 and a secondary insurance that requires ICD-9 or vice versa. So again, it can be a challenge to maybe manage that claim and catch it that you've got to remember or know which, for even the same charges, if they've got to go out the door in different ways depending on if they're primary, secondary, and what their rules are. And then as a way of clarification, date clarification, one of the other reasons we can't just flip a switch is because the date is not tied to the date that the claim is billed or the date that it's submitted. The deadline is actually tied to the date of service. So you may encounter scenarios, again, where you have, this is going to be our next challenge, where you may have dates of service, for example, September, that you haven't been able to bill yet until October. You're not actually sending them out the door until October. Those claims are going to be mixed and mingled with October claims as well for dates of service in October. And again, the dates of service that were from previous to October 1st for our September claims, or even earlier if we're behind in billing or need to, we're delayed on some of those claims, need to have ICD-9 codes on them because the date of service was prior to October 1st. That also affects our rebill claims. So even if we sent our claim out before October 1st with those, ICD-9 on it, once that date is passed, if we ever need to rebill that claim, there needs to be a way to easily manage or keep track of which claims need to go out with ICD-9 versus ICD-10. So that can be a challenge if there's not an easy solution. The other thing that as you look at ICD-10, everywhere you look, there's we've got to learn it, right? The providers and the staff, we need to modify our workflows. We need to do testing prior to October 1st. That includes not just our claims, but internally in our office, and adjustments need to be made. So the challenge, of course, is if we know we need to implement changes prior to October 1st so that we can kind of work those processes out, but our claim can't actually go out the door till October 1st with ICD-10s on it. How do we handle that? And then the last challenge, and this won't affect everybody, but for offices that are still using super bills, you've got to think about getting that super bill updated. This is from AAPC. They took a typical family practice super bill that has a page full of ICD-9 codes, the most common codes that they use. and then they compared that or converted it to what it would look like in ICD-10, and this is what they found. One single super bill turns into 8 pages under ICD-10. So again, that the fifth challenge that we're going to discuss is that your super bill just might not be a feasible solution any longer. So out with the old and in with the new with ICD-10. So in light of all those things, it can be troublesome, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to, if all those things impact me, it can be really troublesome how we're going to handle those changes and requirements to stay on top of our billing so that we don't miss out on reimbursements. The good news is there are solutions.